So you want to rest, and you're like, Damon, how do I set boundaries? I got my kid pulling on my leg. So many little kids pulling on my leg. I got my spouse needed this, my partner needed this, my work needs this, the world needs this. I have a startup, I just got funding, or I don't have any funding, I need to go find funding. We can keep going on and on down the list. It's tough. It's tough to set boundaries. One of the first things you can do as far as setting boundaries is to use scheduling software. I use Calendly. I forgot to put the link in there, but I can put it in the replay. I use Calendly. It's calendly.com. No sponsor, just I rock with them. Shout out to them. Where it actually will take my entire schedule. I have a family schedule that's with my former partner as well as my kids. I have my schedule, and of course, I have my business schedule. It's like I'm going to coach this person, da da da, all these different things. Calendly will take all those, mash them all up, and then I will work with Calendly, and this is where a little bit of work comes in, and says I want to have coaching appointments Monday through Thursday. But maybe not on Wednesday because I have the show on Wednesday and I have a newsletter. Wednesdays are usually pretty busy with my business and personally otherwise. And then Friday, maybe we'll end it off early Friday because I sometimes will go and get my kids from school and then we'll go and hang out for the rest of the afternoon. I don't want to be doing business calls then. And weekends are definitely out unless there's special notices. To like, see all these, those are boundaries. Wednesdays, I got y'all. I've had this show. I've been hanging out with y'all. This is episode 410, I think. 410, episode 410. So 410 times I've hung out with y'all. A lot of those are live shows, which means Wednesday at pretty much at this time throughout the whole time. So it's like, yeah, Wednesdays are busy. So I don't want to connect on Wednesday. That's a boundary. You put those boundaries in the calendar and they're like that. We got the family calendar, we got the business calendar, we got your personal calendar. Great. And you said you only want to connect on these times. Perfect. When someone says, hey, like say one of y'all goes to damebrown.net and you click on the link as far as wanting to coach with me, and we have a 15-minute free consultation, you're like, great. You're not going to see me on a Wednesday. You're going to see the calendar, and it's going to be maybe Thursdays, Tuesdays. We usually have some space on Monday, but it's already arranged for that, so I don't need to do the back and forth. I don't have to email you. You don't have to email me. You just go ahead and pick a time, and then we'll talk about it. That sets up boundaries. It's not a discussion. I don't have to say, hey, yeah, I know you want to coach this Wednesday, but I don't coach on Wednesdays. I don't need to do that. It's in the software. I've been using Calendly for probably a decade plus at this point. Huge fan of them. Again, I'll throw the link in the replay, but it's just calendly.com. Another one which I see a lot with people I care about, as well as with a lot of people that are ambitious like myself, is we have to remember to put Slack into our calendar. I don't mean I don't mean the app. Shout out to Stuart and all the people that founded it. No, I don't mean the app Slack. I mean literally Slack. Because if something goes wrong or you go a little bit over, then your whole schedule is going to be jacked. I've known folks that have had a meeting at it's around 2 p.m. here in Vegas. So they'll have a meeting at 2 p.m. to 2:15. Then they'll have a 2:15 meeting and have a 2:30 meeting. And it's like, okay, do you need a bathroom break, a snack break, a coffee break, a break to implement whatever you got if you're in meeting culture, right? To implement whatever you learned in that meeting to actually implement it so that you can actually do the next meeting effectively. Like when are you breathing? And worst of all, again, if something goes over or if there's a breakthrough, again, with this show, excuse me, traditionally with this show, I will end it around 2 o'clock. So usually be 45 minutes. But there's so much stuff in this episode, I'm going over. But luckily, I have this nice buffer after every Wednesday when I do this show, because there's some shows that are like a half an hour long. Really quick, in and out, not a lot of comments. This one, y'all been jumping in the comments. I have a lot to say about it. We're about to hit an hour. We're going to be wrapping up in like 10, 15 minutes. But you know what I'm saying? Like that's slack. That's flexibility. That's why I'm relaxed, talking to you in my robe, drinking my coffee. We're chilling. I'm not running off to the next appointment. As much as you can create slack. Now, my former coaching client, Jenny Gritters, who's also a coach. Shout out to her. She's doing some wonderful stuff this week with the retreat. Hope you're doing wonderful. Um, and other folks that I've mentored or coached, they talk about there being a season. And I've been talking about this for years, and we're all on the same page. You have a season of this. So you might have a season where you don't have a lot of slack. You're doing back-to-back meetings. That was my 2 years leading the two startups. Excuse me, so quotable for those 9 months and co-founding Cuddler and leading it for that following year. There wasn't a whole lot of slack, right? I was on the go. Yeah, it was always moving. And it was a moment to breathe, and it was a really deep breath or took a really quick nap, usually not on purpose. I just fell asleep because I was exhausted. And that was the season. This season, working with a lot of y'all as a ghostwriter, have the show, of course, doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes with publishing. We'll get into that. You'll find out later on this year. So doing a lot of stuff with that. But there's a certain mellow pace to this year. This is the season. So I can have, hour and a half hanging out with y'all and not have to rush the next appointment. What season are you in? If you're in a season where things can slow down, it can be really easy to keep piling stuff on because we're used to that. We're used to being busy. As I talked about in the newsletter today over at joindamon.me, today's newsletter was going nowhere fast. So if you just look for that on the page, I was talking about how us being busy can often mask an insecurity that we have. So what happens when you get hit a season and you're not busy? A lot of my older generation of family members are reaching retirement or have hit retirement. Excuse me. And I see them going through this where it's like, oh, well, what's my worth then? Well, I'm used to doing this job for the past 40 years. What do I do now? And it's not a matter of just being busy because people are afraid that it's being busy. It's not. How am I contributing? Because if I'm not contributing in this way, then what am I worth? I don't know what my measurement is. I'm not getting a regular paycheck anymore. I'm not I'm not showing up from 9 to 5 anymore. I'm not tired from a hard day's work. So then what am I? Am I still providing? What's my place in the family? All these questions come up. Again, I got a lot of relatives that have recently retired or are retiring right now. These are real questions. But these questions, I believe, shouldn't be based just on retirement. They should be based on any type of transition. Once you get to that, then it makes it a little bit easier. And then as you build Slack in your schedule and as you use the scheduling software, then you really want your inner circles to have your back. Now, I mean that in two ways. Number one, to respect your boundaries, as in they're not going to, if you're obviously exhausted, they're not going to take from you emotionally or otherwise. I don't mean money. I mean emotional labor. If you're having a rough time and they're talking about their rough time, well, you're talking about your rough time. It's like, all right, but I called you, right? So that kind of boundary thing, what a therapist told me is called emotional leaks. So sometimes we have these boundary leaks that come in. The second part isn't just that they're going to support your boundaries. They're going to remind you of your boundaries. I don't know how many times my friends who I consider family, you know who you are, might be watching right now, are like, I'll say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And they'll be like, well, I mean, if you want to do that, we'll support you. But 6 months ago, you said this. And you said this, that, and the third, as we used to say. You said this, that, and the third. And have those priorities changed? That's when you kind of sigh and you're like, no. It's like, all right. Listen, you can go ahead and do that, but it sounds like you're not respecting these boundaries that you set yourself. That's why it's important, long story short, to have people that will hold you accountable. This could be in a business setting, this could be in a personal setting. Hell, I have both. I wouldn't trade them for the world because we can get caught up in our own madness and caught up in our own sauce, particularly in the environment and the dynamics that we have today. It's rough. It's rough because then people have their own issues and chaos and anxieties and all that stuff. And energy leaks, boundary leaks are all over the place. Certain seasons have more chance of an energy or boundary leak than others. We're in one of those seasons right now. That's why I talk about and build from now and the books I'm about to talk about right now. That's why they're so important and so relevant in a bigger sense. So if you're going to set boundaries, use scheduling software, make Slack in your schedule, and get other people's support. Here are some tools that will help you do that. I already mentioned Calendly. Excuse me. I didn't get a chance to put the link in there. Out of all the books I'm talking about here, respect to them, Rest is Resistance. I get the words out of my mouth. Rest is Resistance. I read this book about a year ago. Changed my outlook on life. It's fantastic. Basically, the argument, you can see now you can see the dog ears on that one. Basically, the argument is that we were kind of fooled to believe that rest is a privilege. That comes from a lot of, let's just call it colonialism, and that we're supposed to be machines. This goes back to the industrial age. Now we have the freedom, however you want to interpret that. Now we have the freedom to rest, to build a society, build a culture. And by culture, I don't mean just the big grand culture as in America or Canada, all that stuff, the world. I mean the culture like with me and my kids. That's culture. With me and y'all. Got 18,000 subscribers and a bunch of viewers every week. But we have a culture. This is a thing. The culture says it's okay to come as you are. Today I'm rocking a robe and drinking cold coffee. That's what we're doing today. We have the opportunity to make these cultures, whether they be small or massive. But, and this is why I rock with her. We're not doing that because we're stuck in the patterns of the past. We don't believe we deserve to rest because we are told for a long time that we do not deserve to rest. We started to believe the myth that from capitalism, whatever argument you want to make, that we are machines, that we're supposed to be efficient. As I talked about in the newsletter the previous week, it doesn't, I think it was called, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I think that's what it was called. It was an emoji of someone shrugging. It was one from the previous week, so it would have been from the, I think it was January 30th or 29th of 2025, if you want to look that up. As one of the links in there talked about, people aren't meant to be efficient. We're not meant to be efficient. We're meant to rest. We're meant to love. We're meant to stop. We're meant to work within the seasons. We're part of nature. Even nature doesn't work like that. There's a winter wind outside here in Vegas. It's warm, but it's a winter wind. You know it's wintertime. There's leaves all over. It looks like it's not even fall. It looks like winter here in Las Vegas. What would happen if it was 120 degrees like it normally is in the summer? It would be insane. Everything will shrivel up. Even nature has its cycle. Even amongst climate change, nature still is doing its cycle. Why aren't we doing our cycle? This gets into that and much more. But wait, there's more. Shout out to my mom who got it for me. Let me know what was happening because I didn't know she had a second book. We Will Rest, The Art of Escape. Oh, does that not sound like Bringingworth TV? This was literally my kid's bedtime story when I got it from my mom. Shout out to you. I think I got it in December. It came out a few months ago. Fantastic book. It's a small book. I just slowed myself down because I was going to read it too fast. So I ended up literally reading it to my kids just as I read many chunks of Rest is Resistance. This is a beautiful book. This is essentially the sequel. There's images. There's wonderful quotes. I love the design. I know some of you are design folks, so check out that beauty. Oh, and poetry. Rest is refusal. Rest is life-giving. Rest is power. Rest is medicine. Rest is heaven. Rest is now. Can said it better myself. And a beautiful little bookmark. All the links are below to these two gorgeous books. You've heard my quotes from them. And in fact, a couple of those quotes are actually my email signature. So if you haven't getting an email from me, you'll be hearing more about Dr. Hersey. Shout out to them. How are you setting boundaries? Because you can know that you need to rest. You can make time to rest, but without boundaries, you're not going to be resting at all. How are you setting boundaries with your family, with your loved ones? Um, I had a I had a moment. I might have shared this on the live show over the last couple of weeks. It happened, I believe it happened during spring break, during winter break, when it was just me and the boys and my kids. And I think it was a Saturday or a Sunday. It was a weekend. Let's say it was Saturday. It was a Saturday, and we were playing some video games, and then I was drinking some coffee, and I think we might have been going on a hike later. I don't know. Usual weekend stuff. Maybe go record shop or whatever we are gonna do. And it was around 1 o'clock. I might have been a little bit earlier. And I think it was my youngest, who's 8. And I was going to the bathroom, and he was like, "Are you gonna take your nap?" And I was like, I thought he was trying to be funny. I was like, "What do you mean?" And I kind of made this look, and he understood. He's like, "I mean, you usually take a nap over the weekend. Are you gonna take your nap now?" And I was like, "No, but yeah, maybe later." So even my kids are used to that routine where it's like, oh, part of the reason why, hopefully, knock on wood, daddy is a good dad, is that he's actually resting. He's actually stopping. He's not pushing himself all the time. So it's kind of like an equation. Oh, um, rest for dad plus us being as loving as possible towards him equals him being a good dad. Like it's almost like they're putting down the formula when I don't even have the formula. I just know that when I'm tired, I'll be like, hey, I'm gonna go and lay down for a few minutes. And then again, they're old enough to take care of themselves, and it's usually for literally just for a few minutes. But that's become so much of a routine that I won't even recognize it. But they were like, oh, that that's going into his bedroom. Oh, are you gonna take a nap now? I'm like, no, I'm just going to the bathroom. What? But that also, whether they realize it or not, of course they probably don't, is recognizing and enforcing those boundaries. So then they end up reinforcing those boundaries that I set, even though I didn't realize that I set them in that way. How are the people that you love, the people that you work with, people that you're around, how are they helping you reinforce your boundaries? The people you're around should not be pushing your boundaries, even though it does happen. Ideally, they're going to be the ones that are actually supporting their boundaries. They're going to be the ones that are fortifying you. That is a key hack. How are you setting up your boundaries, and how are you setting it up so that the people around you are supporting your boundaries? Or if you're in a fortunate enough position, how are people around you supporting your boundaries even when you don't even recognize it yourself? A great follow-up to this, you should watch this after it, is our live show, 5 Secrets to Change and Transition. Learning to set boundaries, learning to rest, all that is change and transition. There is a difference between the two. That's why I keep separating them. I get into this episode. Some great feedback from the audience, y'all. It's a really good episode talking about how to transition into perhaps a healthier place, perhaps a place where you have healthier boundaries, perhaps a place where people around you will actually encourage you to get the rest that you need. I'm Damon Brown. I'm an entrepreneurial coach, side hustler, and otherwise non-traditional entrepreneurs. I'm your guide to help you on that journey. And you're watching Bring Your Worth TV live on Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Same time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free on all the platforms, or I'll link below, or do it on the main platform here at bringyourworth.tv. Man, I love this episode. I love talking to you about how you can rest better. If you're watching a replay, let us know. How are you setting up boundaries? How are you learning to stop? And ideally, are there people in your circle, or are you building a circle where people will help you set those boundaries and help you reinforce that need for rest that literally all of us need? Here's to a restful week for all y'all. Remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others.